Welcome to the CrossKnowledge Podcast. Here we discuss the trends, opportunities, and challenges of corporate digital learning. Let's meet today's host.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the CrossKnowledge Podcast. I'm Renan, and I'll be your host today. The Human Advantage is a series of the CrossKnowledge Podcast where we explore the pivotal role of humans in driving organizational success. The idea is to hold candid conversations with business leaders and experts who have demonstrated a deep commitment to fostering a more human workplace. Today, we have the pleasure of welcoming a true visionary in L&D, Pauline Kiejman. She currently leads the global L&D team at the renowned fashion and luxury group Kering. Throughout her impressive 20 years of experience, she has worn many hats: consultant, talent manager, learning specialist, and even an executive coach. She is known for her innovative spirit and her unwavering commitment to pushing the boundaries of learning. A prime example of this is her groundbreaking program, Global Learning Day. This initiative invites the 49,000 employees at Kering to learn. In its first year, the initiative engaged 17,000 employees, far exceeding the target of 9,000 to 10,000 participants. By the second year, participation grew even more, reaching 22,000 employees across the company. Today, Pauline and I will explore how L&D can shift from being a traditional organizer of training to becoming a facilitator of change. Pauline, welcome to the show. I am thrilled to have you on this series of the CrossKnowledge Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It sounds like it's going to be a fun conversation.
Oh, yes, I'm sure it will. So, Pauline, just to get started, can you share some highlights from your career and the key moments that have shaped where you are today?
Sure, I'll try to be brief because you can't summarize 20 years in as many minutes. First of all, I studied law because I was crap at math. And so I wanted to do something that was going to teach me about life experience rather than a theoretical topic like literature. And I hated every minute of it. So I realized that I wanted to work in a field that was more about people than rules. And I discovered HR through a bilan de compétences. So that was my first experience of getting coached. And I think it's been a big inspiration throughout my career. And that's why I mention it, because I realized that you have most of the answers that you need within, but sometimes you need someone to be able to extract it. And so I did my master's in HR, and I went into my first job as consultant, which I loved because it really gave me an opportunity to discover many types of organizations and many types of projects and understand how there's not one solution that fits all. Like every organization, depending on its history, its culture, its needs, its transformation, needs to have something that is going to work for them. So that was a really important lesson for me. I then worked in-house at Eurostar, which was one of my favorite organizations. And I there realized the strengths and patience and tenacity that it is to be in-house, where you really have to be the torchbearer for your program and you have to be relentless at pushing it within the organization. And I left that for a brief HR experience in a startup company. And then I joined LVMH. And that was my first experience of a large corporate organization and being at the HQ. And during the time that I was there, the group went from 100,000 people to 150,000 people. It's grown even bigger, but it was very interesting to see how you have to structure yourself when you grow, and also discovering the world of luxury. And I was in charge of creating experiences to be able to deliver change within leaders. And I think it was my first experience of don't ask the people what they want at that level, because they don't know what they need. Yeah. So they can tell you what they want, but it's not necessarily what they need. It was a great place to really find my voice and explore my creativity, because it's a place where everything was possible and the organization was growing so fast that it was really interesting. And then after LVMH, I became an executive coach and set up my own company and did that for 2 years, and I loved every minute of it. But I missed the big teams and organization and feeling part of a collective. And that's why I joined Kering 4.5 years ago, just when COVID hit. So
wow.
that was a whole experience in itself.
Well, it's really amazing because actually you can see that even though you started like with law and then you started like, I mean, as I said in the introduction, you wore many hats like throughout your career, but you can all see that leading up to, learning and people and caring about people and helping them grow and perform. It was very interesting because actually, while we were prepping for this episode, you mentioned this term that really stuck with me to this day. Actually, that has stuck with me to this day, which was the role of L&D as a facilitator of change. What made you realize that L&D is a facilitator of change rather than just an organizer of training?
I think the first time I had this thought was many years ago when I was an executive coach and a consultant, and I was working with someone who was working in a big bank. And she was telling me, she was head of L&D in a large bank. How do I know what to give my leaders? Should I go and ask them what we should be doing in terms of leadership development? And that's really the moment where it hit me. And I think that in that way, luxury has really helped me think in that mindset. But when you're a leader in a big organization, you are focused on delivering the business. You are focused on managing your teams. You are focused on achieving objectives. You don't have the time or the opportunity to step back, to look long term, to go and explore solutions and digest and give a perfect answer to your L&D person about what you need. You just can't. Yeah. And you need to be able, as an L&D person, you need to be able to listen carefully to what the business is saying, describing, see what are the things that are recurring, and be the sponsor of this is how I'm going to help you get to where you need to. And so that's what I mean by facilitator for change. There are too many changes for our leaders to be able to take them on, analyze, and be able to give us the script of what they need. We need to go further than just collect, an Excel spreadsheet of all of the people who need something, and we need to be able to be proposing solutions. That's what I mean by facilitator for change. I think I've been working really closely with my learning community within the group for the past years. And we've worked really closely on this Global Learning Day project that you've been mentioning. And I think that I've really seen the change in terms of them taking orders and, prescriptions and, using the content that the group is delivering to actually reading themselves.
Yeah.
And I think that what we need to do as a community of learning within our group is to understand enough of the business transformation so we can build the bridge to this future.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally does, and I totally agree with that. I mean, you touched on the answer to this next question, like very briefly, but I would like you to elaborate on this a little bit more. How would you describe the profile of an L&D professional who acts as a facilitator of change?
So first of all, let me tell you what I think that they should do differently.
Okay.
I think that first of all, they have to identify the outcome. So by listening, by being really curious about the business, by spending time with them, they should be able to identify what is going to be needed to unlock, to build that bridge. Then they can start defining the content, because from the outcome, they can see what are the different steps, right? And then they can become creative about finding the most effective methodology. I don't think, and I've said that in opening, But I don't think that there's one way to create a learning organization. I think there's many ways to do it. And I think it really depends on the history, the culture, where you start from, the level of maturity, etc. You have to love the people where they are, and you have to help them build that journey. And so when I say the most effective methodology, so for some people, and I have a trusted L&D network where we share a lot of our solutions. And for some people, it's going to be a lot of digital, very little face-to-face. For some people, it's going to be about the nudges and the actions. But like for some people, it's going to be co-development at a scale. So I don't think that there's one way of doing it, but they have to test different solutions and see the one that delivers the most impact. And I think that the world is too quick to change for us to be able to wait for people to tell us what we should be doing.
Yeah.
So to be able to do that as an L&D person, you have to be curious, but genuinely curious, not as in, oh, what have you done this weekend? But like, how is it working right now in your part of the business? What's going on? Who's doing what? What is the biggest challenge that you have? So curiosity about inside, but also curiosity about outside. What is the percentage of time that you dedicate to your own learning and development? What is the percentage of time that you dedicate to going and meeting other people and to doing all those things? Because the second thing that I think you need to be able to do is to anticipate.
Yeah.
We've seen the last few years, we've gone from, at least in my industry, no e-learning, no digital learning, to all digital learning during COVID, to maybe a little bit of both. So we have to be able to anticipate a little bit, because when the need is there, it's too late for the business if we realize the need at the same time that they do. Yeah. So we have to anticipate. The other thing I would say is you have to be a really good project manager. I know it sounds really like basic, but actually in HR, sometimes we don't have people who are project managers. We have a lot of people who are really good at reacting and responding, because that's what is needed of a lot of HR function. But I think L&D is a very specific function where you have to be able to go from the idea to the execution in a systematic and reliable way, and that's project management. I also think you have to be creative. You have to be willing to try different things and imagine solutions that could take a little bit of everything. And that creativity will allow you to surprise your leaders, to delight them, and to be able to deliver that. I think that the last really important thing that I think needs to happen is to be collaborative. I think the world of learning particularly is going to be fed by communities, by sharing ideas and building on each other. And so, being able to be truly collaborative, take your own stuff, being responsible for your own things, and having an open dialogue is going to be really key.
Yeah, what I find interesting is that all the skills or competencies that you mentioned are like pretty much like many of them are soft skills or power skills or human skills, like whatever you want to name it. So it's pretty much like it's more like the 21st century professional, like the employee as well. I mean, we need to collaborate with others. We need to to project manage. We need to like to be creative, like to find like new solutions. I mean, also we need to anticipate the needs and all that. So I think like this is a great work, like to have it's for L&D professionals, like to catch up with those skills as well. It's not only like for the employees, but also for L&D.
What's interesting in what you're saying is, if you think about the hard skills in learning, I mean, I think that the best trainings that I've had are all about the coaching courses that I've done, and I've done many. I've done many different types of people development related programs and courses and stuff. I think understanding human beings and how human beings learn is the only real skill that you need, because then you can build that into programs and stuff. And conceptual design, you will always find people whose job it is to help you design if you are in-house and you are looking for external providers. So understanding people and having those skills to push internally is what is going to make you a facilitator of change.
Yeah.
You don't need to have your provider skills. You can get them, you can build them along the way, but like your job is to facilitate this transition.
Yeah, that's really amazing. So in your opinion, what are the main obstacles that prevent L&D from evolving to a facilitator of change?
I think being territorial.
Oh,
I think it's the opposite of collaborative in a way. But I think wanting to arrive with the solution. Sometimes the solution is built with the business. I'm thinking of something that we've done for the merchandising function within my group, where they've really surprised us and challenged our thinking in terms of what was needed, how to deliver it. And I think that one of my biggest learning is as long as I thought that I needed to come up with the solution and I needed to know, as long as I did that, I failed. Or at least I didn't give my whole potential. The moment I stopped thinking that I should hold all of the knowledge, whether with my internal stakeholders in learning or in the business, and knowing that we could co-create something that was going to be bigger, bolder, more innovative, that's the moment that the team and I became a lot more efficient and creative and impactful.
Yeah, and I think sometimes it's all about, well, we propose something and then we see like what's not working and then we go back, we fix it. And then we don't expect that like the final solution to be perfect and shiny and, but also like this back and forth and say like, okay, we need to fix this. And fixing like along the way also helps build like,
I completely agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think wanting to do your own thing can sometimes be one of the barriers. Wanting to be the creator of something. I think that's the moment where you need to put your ego aside and be really looking to get the best ideas and apply them regardless. So being generous in that way of saying whoever's ideas it is, then it's going to, if it's been working, let's use it and let's try it.
Yeah.
What are the other barriers? Yes, I think in a way that feeling that you have to arrive with the solution.
Yeah.
I think it's a guarantee for boxing yourself, for putting yourself into a little box of, I don't have the exact right provider who is going to do the exact right thing, so I don't know what to tell the business. Let's build it together. Let's think together. And I can tell you that business people have a lot of experience and knowledge, and with our help, we can really help them enhance what they're already doing. And so I think we also have to make sure that we empower people at every single level, whether they're managers or employees, about building their own development journey.
Yeah.
And sometimes we feel in HR that we have the responsibility of owning this. But actually, are we really able to know what people who are in other countries who have had that level of experience in that specific function should be doing for the next 5 years? Probably not. Are we able to help them understand what is the framework? How do they learn? How do they motivate themselves? And where do they find the resource is probably a better bet of expertise.
Yeah. And also it reminds me that, because sometimes like we're so focused like on the individual, but that sometimes like we forget the business, like as you were mentioning before, we forget the business. So like we don't focus like on what the business needs for those people to perform and achieve the business outcomes. And sometimes like we just focus like, well, what do you really want to learn? While like I think like the solution sits like pretty much in between, like in this gap between like what the business needs and what the individual needs to perform and deliver.
Can I share a story about this?
Sure, absolutely. Go ahead.
So I had a situation where somebody wanted to learn something, and the manager had said yes, and the HR said, I don't think this is a priority for you. I think you should do something else. And to me, that's the worst thing that you can do.
Yeah.
Because if you don't feed the appetite for learning, whether it's relevant in the next 3 months or in the next 3 years, you've just lost an employee.
Yeah.
So for me, it's not about controlling who learns what. It's about feeding the appetite for learning, because if you feed it, your organization will get gain from it, either because they are more performant, they are more engaged, they are more able to understand and drive their career towards their next job. But don't stop people from wanting to learn.
Exactly.
Ever.
Yeah, and also because actually people have their own aspirations. They have, they want to grow their career. They want to, like, while the business like wants to perform, the person themselves, like, they want to, want to build a career, maybe like they need that for the career and etc. So,
And also they're real people. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
exactly.
They might have other appetites and other things that are outside, which are going to feed back their role and their careers. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So support any learning is my recommendation.
Amazing. Can you, I mean, we mentioned some of the projects that you've led like throughout your career, but can you share with us a specific example where you used learning to drive organizational change?
I think that it's always been my personal driver to think about what I do and the impact it has on the organization. So I have many examples, and at different levels. When you do an executive coaching, it means that you are helping a top manager think and shape the way that they work, the way that they shape their vision, the way that they interact with others, the way that they think about, driving their team. So hopefully that part of learning, even if it's individual, will have a big impact on the organization. I think it's the same thing for, group learning, where you are in a room for a few days, or whether you have a learning journey. If you think about what am I trying to get for the organization, you can make sure that this will have a return on investment. The thing that we've done within my role at Kering is that we've really tried to think about why did people not turn up for learning? Because that was the case when I joined. And we had a lot of people who, for many reasons, a lot of them driven by business, didn't have the availability to dedicate time to learning. And so what we try to think about is, what do we need to make them want to come?
Yeah.
And what do we need to help the organization understand how positive investment it is for them? And so we wanted to give people the tools and resources to be able to change their behaviors. And that's why we started the Global Learning Day. We really have a whole strategy that was built on driving a learning culture where employees would know that they would have a career within the group because we can help them grow, where managers would know that they can hire people who are not necessarily have all of the skills right now. They don't have to hire plug and play people because they trust their organization, their HR, their learning to help them get them to the right level. Because if you hire people who don't have all the skills, then it's a step up, and then it's really exciting for them, and they will do longer in their role, etc., etc. So we wanted to change the mindset, and we wanted to make sure that people had that internal appetite for learning. So I'm not going to give you all of the steps of how we came up with it, but one of the things we did from the beginning is to apply the different steps from Peter Senge of the learning organization to our internal learning team. And so we got together, we agreed on the framework, we decided together what Global Learning Day would look like, because I know that other organizations do it. And there's as many global learning initiatives as there are organizations. So I wanted to make sure that this was ours and this was going to be a shared project. And what happened is that because we were so collaborative in the way that we've done it, each of the houses really made it theirs. And the idea was that they use the Global Learning Day to serve their internal purpose depending on when they are. So for one of our houses, it was really about creating engagement. And so they've done dozens of local physical face-to-face events. They even closed their office. They said, today, no meetings. Everybody just spends time on learning. For other organizations, it was all about making sure everybody was on the same page on a specific skill, like project management. So it really, people had different strategies, but it became theirs. And so we kicked off this first edition, not really knowing what we were going to look for. And we decided that if we had to go for something to achieve a goal, we wanted to achieve 16% of the organization. And that number doesn't come from anywhere. That number is the tipping point. It's the tipping point where if you want a culture change, that's the moment where you get enough people that have been touched to start diffuse it, change within. So we said 16%, that was about between 8 and 9,000. And we said, okay, if we do that, that's enough. And because this project was carried upon by so many internal people who made it theirs, so it's not me doing it or telling them to do it, it's them owning it and wanting to push it, it's become viral. And so we had those 17,000 people who gathered, everywhere in the world, 25 cities, 16 different languages, and who participated one way or another to this first Kering global event. And it was really interesting because it demonstrated that indeed there was a lot of internal appetite for learning, huge amount of appetite. So it wasn't because of lack of wanting, it was because it wasn't first in priority. And so there was really something where I saw that to work on the culture, you have to really on board and trust a lot of people within the organization. So I think that was really the first step. And the second thing that we learned with this project is that if we want a culture change, we have to do things at scale.
Yeah.
We have to touch people where they are. So in local cities, at the back of our stores, in our factories, everywhere. It has to be local. And I think it's the beauty of the Global Learning Days that the content is really global, but the application, the experience is very local. And so everybody can find something that's for them. And it's one of these, because I'm focusing on change and culture, we're not focusing on a specific topic of skills. The first year, the topic was learn how to learn. So we didn't call it exactly that, but that was the content. We didn't do anything that was around a specific skill. That really was left to each house to decide for themselves. This year in March, we did our second edition was around developing others. So if I know how I learn and what I want to learn, etc., how do I go to the next step? As an employee, I have peers. As a manager, I have people in my teams. As an expert, I might need to share what I do with others. And so how do I share my knowledge and my skills with other people? And that's also a topic that resonated well with the teams and the houses, because it's also a topic of building communities and building engagement within the teams. When you have a team in a store and everybody is recognized for a skill set by their peers, it gives an individual boost. And then it's really rewarding to want to help other in your team by sharing that specific skill. So it works for everybody. So we are building the theme of next year. So I can't tell you what it is yet. We will be finalizing it at the end of September. But the idea is that we all always build this together with my community. So it's something that we do as a collaboration.
Yeah. And also it goes back to what you were saying before about the profile of this L&D who acts as a facilitator of change. Well, it needs to be collaborative. Like you need to be talking to people, either like for the delivery people who's going to deliver like the program locally and adapt it like to the local needs, but also like in building it. And you're going to embark those people by getting them involved in the project build as well.
Yeah. And last year, what we did was that we really wanted to talk to retail.
Yeah.
And so we know that formats that are too long, an hour and a half, is difficult to get a whole team of people doing it together. And so we built a planner for a whole month with lots of little activities that they could plug and play of 10 to 15 minutes max. And so that was really useful for them. And we really worked with the people who were specialized in retail training to help us adapt the formats and the types of exercises and stuff. So we leveraged on internal expertise to be able to talk specifically to this population. So yes, the idea is to go and find people where they are.
It's great. Okay, so now we're just going. This is like the last question that I would have for you today. What advice would you give to your L&D peers who are willing to embrace their role as facilitators of change?
I think the first thing I would say is find a community. Whatever the right community for you, wherever you are. I'm part of several communities. I don't like to call them networking because networking sounds like you're looking for a new job. So that's why I like to call them communities, whether it's a peer group, whether it's an internal L&D group, it doesn't really matter, but people who share the same interests and passion and who are willing to openly share. Because they will not only will they share, but they will also challenge your thinking. And sometimes we are in the prison of our minds. This is how you do things, and this is the right way to do it, and we miss opportunities. So that's the first thing. I would say go back and read Peter Senge and look at the rules of the learning organization. A lot of it is hard to do on an everyday basis. But I think it's a really good framework for challenging the way that we think, and making sure that we live it as a learning team so we can role model it for others and say, yes, it does work, and then try little things. So one of the things we've done with our team, we've tried many things in the 4.5 years that I've been here, but one of the things that we still do is we used to call them Wednesday learning, where we had a moment for people to be able to either share something that they've learned in a book, a podcast, or whatever, but also to be able to extract from their day-to-day what they've learned. And what I've seen, especially with the people who were younger in my team, is that they felt that their learnings were too small to be able to be shared. But actually, once they understood the level of learning that I was talking about, which is about self-reflection.
Yeah.
And reflexivity. Then they really started to be able to apply it from a business perspective. So really look at how they had worked, not just what they had done, but how they had worked and what that was confirming or infirming in their beliefs, in the way that they were doing things, etc. And by sharing, they opened up amazing conversations within the team. So try to role model those things day in, day out, and then you'll be able to get some really good ideas about how to do it for other people.
Yeah, that's really amazing. I mean, I'm taking those. I'm taking that advice as well.
Little and often is better than big and once a year.
Exactly. Yeah. Do not build the solution, just like Coco's episode, as you just said. Well, Pauline, I would like to thank you very much for accepting to be on our show. I mean, it has been amazing, like having this conversation with you. And thank you so very much.
Thank you. Speak soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope to see you again for the next episode of the CrossKnowledge Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and colleagues.